Hi everybody, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra, here with my friend Terry Johnson, who is the least scumbag attorney I've ever met in my life. And I love you. And I want to talk to him today about consenting to searches as a private citizen and when and how we can limit that. Firearms Legal Protection just started a 100% free monthly newsletter to bring quality, accurate information about legal self-defense to good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people like you. Go sign up for free, no-hassle help for your self-defense at the link in the description, and thank them for sponsoring today's lesson. So I know we're talking about self-defense here, and we're talking to people who carry firearms.
Right.
And we're talking to folks who carry other tools for their defense, whatever. And sometimes, you get pulled over or police come to your house or whatever. An interesting thing, I had somebody ask me this the other day about consent and law enforcement interactions.
Yes.
Because I see this all the time. An officer comes up and says, "Hey, do you have any ID on you? Hey, can I see your ID, please?"
Yes.
Right? Or, "Do you mind if I take a look in your car?" And they do that straight up to get consent. Because if you go, well, I mean, sure. Or if you
I
feel,
have nothing to hide.
right. Well, I feel like, well, if I say no, then they're going to give me a hard time, and then they're going to end up giving me a ticket, or they're going to end up giving me that issue or whatever. So first couple things, Terry.
Sure.
First question is a criminal defense attorney, somebody who is a specialist in this area. When a police officer asks for consent to search your person or search your vehicle or search your home, is it wise to give that consent?
The answer to that is no.
Holy crap, a lawyer
No.
who didn't say it depends.
No. If they're asking for consent, the answer is no. Okay? Nothing good's going to come out of that. Okay? So it's a difference if they say, "Do you mind if I search you down?"
Right.
Now, if you're pulled over and they ask you to step out and they say, "I have to search you for my own personal, for your
Right.
safety and my safety," that's something completely different.
Notice they won't ask. That whether that's if they think there is crime afoot and they do a Terry stop, right?
Yes.
Terry v. Ohio, that's a big thing.
Learn that in law school.
Yeah, no, I didn't learn it in law school, and I won't. But the point is that, okay, so if they feel like there's evidence that you have a firearm on your person and it could be used against them, and they have a articulation against that.
Not just a firearm, any kind of weapon whatsoever. It's for their own safety, and there's some other things behind that. But the bigger question comes down to, you were asked. If you're asked, the answer is no. And you'd be amazed at how many criminals, and when I say criminals, I'm talking about the repeat criminals who know better.
Frequent flyers.
They will say, "Yeah, officer asked if he can search my car," and I told him, "Yeah." I said, "Why?"
There's meth in your car or something, doofus.
Right. Well, they were going to find it anyway. That's some of the response, and it's just like, haven't you been down this road before?
Yeah. So I want to talk, of course, to good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people. Okay. So we've seen a couple of these. For instance, there was recently an NFL player who had a firearm in the back seat of his car.
Right.
Officer pulls him over for speeding, sees the firearm in plain view. Now he doesn't ask for permission, right? He doesn't say, "Hey, do you mind if I search your car?" No, I came up to the car and then while conducting a traffic stop, saw what anybody could see in plain view. That was illegal here in the state because it was California's definition of an assault weapon.
Sure.
Stupid, but whatever, that is what it is. And so he's facing charges for that.
Yes.
Because they took him under arrest. Now that's a big difference. So A, why would you leave that on the back seat, you moron? That's stupid.
Right.
But B, if the officer then said, "Hey, do you mind if I search your vehicle because I pulled you over and I didn't like what I saw," or whatever, well, the answer to that is no. I don't waive any of my rights.
Right. The answer is no. Exactly. Now, some things you've got to be careful of. Okay. For example, in some jurisdictions, and Michigan is one, if do you consent to a blow? Do you have alcohol in your system? As part of my concealed pistol license, I'm supposed to do that. If I don't, then I lose my concealed pistol license in my state.
Okay.
So again, it just depends on where you are, but for the most part, if you have a choice, the answer should always be no. Let the police do their job, okay?
Well, and listen, you guys know, if you watch the big channel, we do badge cams, I'm solidly pro law enforcement.
I am as well, yes.
I'm pro good cop. I'm anti bad cop. I
Right.
am pro good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people. I'm not lawful stupid. I think some laws are dumb and should be repealed. But the big thing here is again, we're not talking about a frisk, right? A Terry frisk. So again, on those kinds of things, if the officer pulls you over in the state of Arizona, they have the right to ascertain if they feel like there's evidence that this person is armed and that could be a risk to the officer. They have the right to pull you out of the vehicle, to do an outside the clothing pat down in order to determine whether or not there's a weapon present. And in Arizona, where I'm at least, they can take that weapon for the duration of the stop.
Yes.
It's constitutional carry here, so you can carry, if you're over 21, carry a concealed firearm on your person, you don't need a permit. And I got pulled over for speeding and had a cop, hey, are there any firearms in the car? Yeah, there are, I'm carrying concealed. Okay, well, I'm gonna take that from you for the stop. Okay, well, come over and get it.
Right.
And that's been okay. It's a whole nother story. But that's a different question too. So in Arizona, if a police officer asks you if you are armed, you must answer them accurately.
Yes.
Otherwise you've committed a crime.
And again, you have to know where you are.
Right.
Like for example, in some cities, being on your cell phone, texting, even looking at your GPS is a violation of certain city laws, I know of. So you got to really know where you are before you make certain decisions.
And so I want to ask this other part of this as well, Terry, because you say, okay, wait a minute, an officer asks, right? So do you mind if I search your car? Or do you mind if we come into your house and look? All right, I've seen that sometimes. My wife and I swam in some very conservative circles for a while in the homeschooling world, and you'd see like a truant officer show up. Well, do you mind if we come in and take a look? To say, okay, wait a minute, there's no magic wands, there's no magic words or whatever, but to be very clear to say, I do not consent to any searches.
You can say that. That's actually happened to me, having gone through a divorce, and you've got a minor child, and there was an alleged incident, and my ex decided to call the police, which involved at this point CPS, Child Protective folks, and the local police called and said, well, we're going to come along with them, and I said, no, you're not.
Right.
And the officer said, well, I have to come. I said, no, you don't. And they showed up, and the officer was left standing on my stoop. Nope, you got to sit. What do you mean I can't come in? This person I have to let in by law.
Right.
You, I don't. Now you want to come in, you get a warrant.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the answer is no.
So an officer, if they have a warrant, a warrant is they have probable cause that they need to search a residence, a person, a place, a car, because they have a probable cause that something illegal is there that they need to seize as evidence.
Right, they've been given permission by a judge.
So they have to go and argue before a judge.
Yes.
Now, I'll be honest with you, getting a warrant, depending on the judge, can be ridiculously easy, right? So it's a very low bar. This is not like, not a lot of these judges aren't talking to defendants all day long, they're talking to cops all day long.
Exactly.
And so they can get those warrants relatively easily for the most part. So now in next week's video, I want to talk about the duration of stop and how that goes. But big thing here, for all good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people, your Fourth Amendment rights matter. So I know we're big on the Second Amendment. I'm big on the Second Amendment. I'm just as big on the Fourth Amendment. That unreasonable search and seizure without a warrant shall not be allowed. And so the answer when they say, do you mind if I?
No.
Is no. You're not allowed to. I do not consent. I do not want that. No, you can't search my car. Now, I will say as well that even if you give consent, you can withdraw consent.
Yes, so for example, if you're in the car and an officer says, may I search your car? You can search everywhere but the glove compartment. Then that's the only places they can go. They cannot go in that glove compartment.
Right.
Now,
and that by itself is not probable cause or even reasonable suspicion.
No, it's not. But here's one thing I'm sure someone's gonna ask, and they're probably typing it right now. And the question is, but doesn't that make me look bad? And the question becomes, look bad to who?
To whom?
It's not about how you look. It's about protecting your rights. Because again, it's not I have nothing to hide. It comes down to it's none of your business, which are two different things.
Yeah, there it is. So you see, what our Bill of Rights does is it limits what our government can do.
Right.
It doesn't limit us, it limits the government. And really, what the Fourth Amendment says is what we have on our person or in our property is none of the government's business unless they have a warrant, and that warrant is sworn out by a judge, that there's some evidence there that a crime has been committed. And unless they have actual probable cause of that, then no, you can't search my stuff. And if they do have probable cause, they're not going to ask you for permission.
Right. And again, one of the ways around a warrant is consent. And I actually teach law to a couple of agencies back in the Michigan area, and I tell them all the time the quickest way to get what you want is just simply to ask.
Just ask, and they'll get you. Oftentimes, they will get that permission. So, and where I think this comes into play in Second Amendment world is when you carry, or if you have your firearm in restrictive places. We've seen people get hemmed up that were in Pennsylvania and they cross a border into New Jersey. We've seen a couple of those,
right.
and those start showing up problems when the officer goes, well, hey, do you mind if I search the vehicle? Or I saw that you have a concealed pistol license. Do you have any firearms on your person? Or are there any firearms in the car? And you go, well, no. And he goes, well, do you mind if I search? Okay. And they find a gun in the trunk. Yeah, I mind if you search. No, you're not searching my vehicle.
Right.
Do you have any, are there any firearms in the car? Officer, I have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination in any capacity, so I'm not going to answer that question.
Exactly.
And that's not an admission of guilt.
Exactly.
And it cannot be used against you for the officer to say, well, you said that, and so therefore, that's evidence. No, right. That's going to get tossed in court. And he knows that, or she knows that, so they go, okay.
They've been playing the game much longer than you have.
And they're good at it. And listen, again, I'm pro law enforcement, but I'm also pro private citizen.
Right.
And I'm not pro getting hemmed up on stuff.
Right, but here's the thing. If you go into the encounter with the understanding of, I've done nothing wrong.
Right. I've done nothing morally wrong here.
And I'm not going to allow you to search my vehicle unless, under certain circumstances, let me rephrase it. I'm not going to give you consent
right.
to search my vehicle. And if I'm not going to do that, then you've already put your foot down. Let them figure out something else, because you're not going to win that fight on the side of the road.
Right.
That fight needs to be won in court. And the best way to do it, especially from a consent standpoint, is just say, I don't consent. And if that's on their badge cam, that you've said, no, I don't want to do this, or nope, I don't want you going in my car, they're going to have to overcome that some way, somehow.
And so maybe there is a reason to ask that. If this officer starts asking those things, here's a thought and a question for you as we finish up today, Terry. If an officer is having an interaction, is it reasonable then, and they say, hey, can I have consent, for me to ask, officer, is your badge cam running?
Sure, ask them.
And to say, officer, will you activate your badge cam, please? Because I would like it on your badge cam that I say, I do not consent. Now, if he goes, no, I haven't activated my badge cam and I'm not going to, it's my right to then say, okay, well, I'm going to record this interaction. I'm going to turn my phone on and say, okay, I'm sitting here on the side of the road. I've been pulled over by this officer. I do not consent to searches. I do not consent to searches, and I do not admit to any wrongdoing. And if they need to overcome that, now I have a visual record of that. I have an auditory record of that. Hopefully on their badge cam, again, they've got that record. And I'm not saying that officers are terrible people. I'm going to say I've seen some officers enforce some laws that are stupid.
Yeah.
And bad. Yeah. We saw it last weekend. And quite frankly, I'll just tell you guys this. This is, we were floating down a river with some friends, and a couple of state cops were floating down the river and wrote some people a ticket for simple marijuana consumption. It wasn't me, it wasn't our group, but you see these folks floating down the river. Oh, come on, you guys, what are you doing? What are you doing writing tickets? That's stupid. So I actually sat there with those people and said, okay, the next time this happens, here's how you deal with that. Not consent to searches and do those things. Anyways, I don't want to see you get hemmed up for stupid stuff. I don't want to see you rolling in California and a cop fishing for something. You end up on gun charges when you shouldn't have.
Exactly.
You go to New Jersey and you end up on gun charges when you shouldn't have. I'm not anti-law enforcement at all, and I get it. Cops use these tools to catch actual criminals doing actual criminal stuff all the time. But good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people, it's perfectly okay. And in fact, I think it's a moral good to exert your constitutional rights.
And they're there for a reason.
They're there for a reason. Yes. So, you heard it from the attorney. Do you mind if I search? The answer is?
No. Just say no.